Hey everybody, this is Brian, and this is video 4 of the Divorce Survival Guide. This is what to do if you're considering a divorce, and this is a painful video. I'm gonna warn you now, this is gonna be a painful one. There's gonna be some of you out there watching this that are probably not ready to hear what I have to say to you. A lot of you are stuck in a self-destructive cycle, and when you're in that cycle, it's very hard to get back out. I know, I was there. And I'm going to tell you what I wish someone would have sat me down and walked me through, and it would have saved me literally years of my life. So the first thing you need to understand is the legality of actually getting a marriage. Let's talk about the legal aspect first. There's 2 ways to end a marriage. First is divorce, second is annulment. Now, divorce is what this whole series is about. Annulment is a completely separate topic. To get a marriage annulled, you pretty much have to prove that the marriage was never even valid to begin with, that you married under false pretense. So for example, you married somebody who was already married, they just never got a divorce and they decided to marry you again, things like that. So usually an annulment is not what's going to happen. You're going to have to get a full-blown divorce. Now, when we talk about how to end a marriage, all these questions and emotions come into play, and everyone has a different way of processing that. You also have to factor in if you have children, because then it's not really about you anymore, it's about the children as well, what's best for the children. And then you have religion that comes into play. Some religions, it's against their religion to actually break off the marriage. I'm going to be painfully honest with you. This is going to be one of the most painful and loneliest times of your life. This is the hardest step in the entire divorce process. Through this whole process, you're going to feel utterly alone. And I'm telling you that up front to prepare you for the reality of the emotional roller coaster you're going to go through. And this particular cycle people get stuck in, the should I stay or should I go? Some people repeat this for months, years, even decades. Everyone knows, and ladies, I'm going to pick on you for a moment. Everyone knows that one girl that's been in that toxic, abusive relationship, but she just never leaves. But nobody really sits her down and says, girl, why are you in this relationship? Why don't you just go? I've actually done that. I've talked to some of my female friends and said, look, this is not healthy for you. Go. And most of them just flat out told me they can't. They're stuck. Financially, they're stuck. Emotionally, they're stuck. They have no friends, no support, no family, no nothing. And it's painful because when someone needs that level of help, it is almost impossible to get them out of the hole they're dug in. Because a lot of times what a guy will do is he'll come in and make the woman so dependent on him and take all of her income so she has nothing and she's just stuck. What she doesn't realize, though, is that she has options. There are a ton of options out there. And not only are there options, there's a ton of programs out there. You just simply get on Google and type in, your local shelter. Now, I'm not saying go stay at a shelter. I'm just saying go down there and talk to them and say, look, I have no money. He financially controls the situation. What do I do? And a lot of times these shelters will take you on an outpatient basis, meaning you live in your own home, but they will still help you. The premise here is that you're going to actually end the marriage. So there's also churches and other support groups, but the main takeaway from that is that you are not alone. It will feel so lonely, but you're not alone in this whole process. You just need to find the right support systems. Unfortunately, friends and family may not be a huge help. I have had many friends tell me that when they decided to talk to their family about potentially ending the marriage, that their family would turn against them and say, oh, well, they're such a good guy or they're such a great gal, and their friends and family would just act like they were a lunatic for even wanting to get a divorce. Well, guess what? The friends and family aren't in that marriage. They're not enduring what you're enduring. So take their advice with a grain of salt. What they say isn't necessarily even the advice they would take if they were in that situation. I had many people say, well, I would stay in that relationship, and turned out they didn't. They actually got a divorce and moved on. So you just take it with a grain of salt of what other people say. This video included. I'm just a person on the internet. I don't know your situation. I'm just giving you helpful tips that helped me and have helped my friends and family members. The first major point I want to touch on is communication. A simple adult conversation can clear up so many misunderstandings in a relationship. And I'm just going to throw it out there right now. Be open, be honest, be very clear with what you think and what you feel and how you think it and how you feel it. Tell them, I don't like it when you do X, or I love it when you do this thing over here. It's good to have healthy boundaries, and you have to communicate those boundaries. The single biggest problem with communication is simply the illusion that it even took place. How many times have you talked to your significant other and it just goes in one ear and right out the other? I won't talk about my own marriage a whole lot in this series because this was really about you and helping you. But as an example, in my own marriage, I would sit down and try to talk to her. She would get upset, and it wouldn't even be anything bad that I would say. I would just say, hey, I think we need to work on this specific issue in our relationship. She'd get mad and she'd shut herself off in a room. I found out very quickly it's almost impossible to communicate with a closed door. Educate yourself. There's a bunch of books out there. We're going to cover some of the books towards the end of this video. But also, talk to friends, talk to family, get their feedback, get their input. Is this normal? Are you overreacting? Or is this really not normal? And that brings me to a really solid point I want to make. And I want you to really listen to me. If you are the victim of abuse, either physical or emotional or sexual, you need to go. This is not okay. This is not normal. This is not appropriate. You need to pack your bags and go right now. Don't even watch the rest of this video. Just go. By continuing to stay in an abusive relationship, you are fostering that behavior. And over time, by accepting that behavior, you are taking equal responsibility for it, and you would have no right to complain or even vocalize that you're a victim if you tolerate it. And that is how the court systems will view you. They will literally sit you down and say, if you're a victim, why did you stay in the relationship for 10 years? And that's a painful fact of what will happen in a courtroom. So if you are the victim of abuse of any kind, go. Just go right now. Don't even wait. Now, you may be asking yourself, where do I go? What do I do? Well, I don't know your area. I don't know the specific region that you're in, but Google is an awesome resource. Just Google women's shelters near me. Or if you're a guy, there are men's shelters. You can go to family, friends, you can get a hotel room. There's a ton of places you can go and a ton of things you can do. The unspoken truth here is that men are just as abused as women, believe it or not. There are a lot of guys that are not so much sexually abused, but physically abused by their wives. The wives will slap them knowing the guy can't possibly hit them back or he goes to jail. Or they're emotionally and mentally abusive. They'll just degrade them and call them a worthless piece of trash all day. And the guy just has to sit there and take it because guess what? He doesn't want to be labeled as that guy that, got upset with his wife and then the police show up and there's a domestic call. You got to understand that the rules and laws are very different for men. If a woman calls 911 for a domestic, the police are usually very, very blunt with the guy because they already view the man as being guilty. But if a guy calls 911 and says, my wife hit me, they're like, oh, come on, buddy, really? It's just the way the world works. So that's the last time I'm going to say it. If you're the victim of abuse, go. Don't wait, just go. The next major thing I want to talk about is value. What value do they bring to the relationship and what value do you bring to the relationship? Value is a touchy subject. It's touchy because it means something different to everyone. What one person values, the other person may just not care about. Some examples of offset values would be like, are you paying all the bills and they don't really do anything around the house? Well, that's an imbalance in value. So you bring more value to the relationship. An example, paying all the bills, doing all the cooking, doing all the cleaning. You see my hands going higher, higher because you're bringing more and more value, but they're just playing around on their phone and ignoring you half the night. If you're bringing so much value and they're bringing so little value, it's game over. That's when you need to sit them down and say, look, you need to bring more value to this relationship. And if you don't, this relationship's pretty much over. An ideal relationship is both parties bring equal value. When you have a value imbalance, this is where you're going to start seeing a lot of the conflict in the relationship. This is where the harsh criticism, the sniping comments, maybe some coping mechanisms really start appearing. For me, it was alcohol. It was a lot of alcohol. Don't worry, it's just Dr. Pepper. I actually quit drinking. Ironically, I quit drinking as soon as my stress level went down because my divorce was full steam ahead. But point being, you'll have a lot of coping mechanisms, and a lot of those coping mechanisms are not healthy for you. You want to find healthy ways to cope with the value disparity. I'm going to be a hypocrite for a minute, and I'm going to recommend that you go get therapy. I'm really going to say, you know what? Go get a couples counselor, sit down, get therapy. I did not go and get therapy, and I did not do that because my wife was a therapist. So I didn't see the point of bringing a third party in who knew what she knew and paying this third party per hour to sit there and listen to us not communicate well. Her skill set as a therapist and my skill set as a manager, we should have been able to communicate, and we just couldn't. And I'm not pointing these flaws out to highlight my problems or belittle her in any way. I'm just pointing out a very important topic that sometimes it just simply doesn't matter. No matter how much communication you have out there, no matter how skilled you both are at communicating, sometimes it just doesn't work, and there's nothing you can do about that. So you have to be careful about value and look at the actual value. How much value are they actually bringing to the relationship, not a perceived value. Guys, we fall into this trap quite a bit because we'll get a smoking hot woman and we'll think, they bring so much value, when reality is beauty's only skin deep. There's a lot of beautiful women out there, and there's a lot of women that are beautiful inside. And you have to understand that just because they have a beautiful exterior does not mean they're beautiful in their heart or their soul. So guys, we get stuck assigning value to a female because they are beautiful, but we don't really know them. And women, you may assign value to a guy based off what he can provide for you, or even his physical appearance as well. But how much value is he actually bringing to you? Are you equals? Are you counterparts? Are you allies? Are you on the same team? If you're saying no to any of those, there's a value offset there somewhere. You need to figure out what it is. Level setting value is very difficult because whoever's not bringing the value to the relationship is now comfortable, and they don't want to have to work harder to bring the same level of value that you are. So as an example, let's say you cook and clean every night, and you're doing this every night, and they're just kind of coming home on their phone, they're checking out, they're playing video games, they're watching sports, they're doing less and less and less at home. You see my hands going lower and lower. When you sit them down and say, you need to do this, you need to do that, they're not going to want to magically start doing more. You have to give it to them in a way that they see the reason for that value. For example, hey, look, I would love it if we could go on an awesome date night. I just don't have free time because I'm doing all these things. Can you do half the things and then we can go have an awesome night together? You might find they're receptive to that. The next part of this is called keeping score. You should 100% keep score in your relationship. Now, hear me out. This is not what you think. We're not talking about, they left the toilet seat up, or she left the hairdryer plugged in again. No, none of that. We're talking about every single day you keep track of, was it a good day or was it a bad day, and why? Each day gets 1 point, just one. No matter how good or bad that day was, you get 1 point. On a good day, you add a point. On a bad day, you reduce it by a point. If it was just a normal day, 0 points. The overall premise here is a healthy relationship that you're actually happy in, you'll slowly see that score go up. An unhealthy relationship, you'll see that score go down. I didn't believe this. I thought it was total nonsense, and I thought it was just childish to even keep score. I was just like, I'm not doing this. I tried it, and I saw my score was going down. And I sat down with my then wife and said, hey, look, this isn't working, and here's why. And, I saw it go up a little bit. So I did see that it was working, but then old habits returned and it started going back down again. Keeping score is a really good way of determining whether or not you're even happy in the relationship. Because a lot of times when you're in the relationship, you don't even know. You're deeply in love with this person, or so you think, but you don't really want to leave. You don't want to have regrets down the road. And keeping score will literally tell you, are you going to regret losing this person? Now, when you combine value, what value you bring to each other, with the score tracking or keeping score, and you combine these two, it gives you a bigger picture of the relationship. If your score is constantly going down and you bring way more value than they do, then it's a no-brainer. You're not in a good relationship and it's not healthy. Now, I can't guarantee that leaving them is going to magically make you happier, but it does set the stage for you finding somebody better. And let me tell you, if you are bringing a lot of value to a relationship, those other people are out there. They're waiting to meet you. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you the opportunities that are just sitting there. People that you think are way out of your league would just love to just sit down and have a dinner with you and have an adult conversation and get to know you as a person, because guess what? They've been in those low value relationships where they were the one bringing all the value and their others were not. So just understand that if you're not happy and you don't know why, the two main ways to figure that out is look at the value you bring to each other and keep score for a while. How long do you keep score? That's a good question. I wish I had that answer. My own personal experience, I did it for a year. And then I sat her down and said, look, this isn't working. And it was in the middle of COVID. And so she brought up, we're in COVID, we're in lockdown, this isn't normal. So I took the score sheet and ripped it up. That being said, I started a new score sheet, and sure enough, started at 0 and it just went down, 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 down. Again, it takes two to have a relationship. I'm not saying this was all her fault. I played my own role, and that's what I encourage you to look at is take a hard look at yourself. When you have those bad days, those negatives, what role did you play into it? Were you crabby? Were you arrogant? Were you ignoring them? Were you doing things you shouldn't have been doing? Did you pick a fight? Did you, break something important of theirs and not apologize? Did you just do dumb things? You have to look at yourself before you look at them, because you are part of this equation, and you can change yourself. You cannot change them. I'm just going to say it. People can say anything. They can make up whatever bull crap they want. They can lie right to your face, and they will. You have to look at their actions. Words can say anything. Actions never lie. I'm going to repeat that. Actions never lie. A great example of this is infidelity. First off, infidelity in any form is not okay. And that is a toxic, abusive relationship that you need to end immediately. Do not give them a second or third chance. But their words may be, oh baby, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. I don't know what happened. It just happened. It'll never happen again. You got to understand, it's not the first time this has happened. It's the first time they got caught. And they're telling you anything they can to get you back to where they think they want you to be. Now, it doesn't even have to be infidelity. Let's say they don't help. They don't do anything. They just sit on their butt all day long. I'm sorry. I'll change. I'll do whatever. I'll take out the trash tomorrow. But then guess what? Tomorrow comes and the trash is still sitting there. Actions speak louder than words. Always watch somebody's actions. Now, if you're talking to them and talking to them and talking to them and their actions don't change, guess what? They're not going to change. There's no amount of words you can say that is going to change somebody. And you have to come to terms with one simple question. You have to ask yourself this one question. And Mom, if you're watching, I thank you for this, because I learned this from my mom. She asked how I was doing, and I just told her the truth. I said, not good. Things are not going well at all. And I don't know what to do because I've done all these things. And she said, ask yourself one simple question. Can you keep doing this indefinitely? Can you realistically keep doing what you're doing now forever? No, I couldn't. I filed for divorce the next day. And you're going to have to ask yourself that very painful question. Can you keep doing this forever the way it's currently going? Because if it's not going to change, it's not going to change. And there's no amount of words you can say that are going to make it change. And the problem is if you take more action, especially if you're bringing more value than they are, the more action, the more value you bring, the less they're going to bring because they have less reason to. For every one person out there that will not treat you right, there's 100 people that would just love to meet you and just be by your side. There are normal people out there that will love you to the ends of the earth. We're going to talk about some books. I may have to refer to my notes once in a while. The first book, this is The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. This was a tough book for me to read, but it actually helped quite a bit. And it helped me understand that not everybody communicates in the same way. So the love languages are, well, what are your love languages? How do you love or feel loved when you communicate? For example, for me, It is physical touch and quality time. And no, we're not talking hanky-panky time, although that's helpful. We're talking just, like holding hands in public and going for a nice nature walk and just chatting about our day. For me, that is pure bliss. But other people, maybe acts of kindness or personal gifts, like giving them a little card saying, hey, I love you. That may mean the world to them. To me, I don't care. Everybody communicates differently is the whole point of the book. I'd encourage you to read that book, especially if you're having trouble communicating with your spouse. Now, it's not going to fix your communication problems, but it will tell you how they communicate so you can at least start down the path of communicating with them. The next book I'd recommend is I Think You Should Talk to Somebody by Lori Gottlieb. Now, this book takes a little bit of an explanation. Lori is a therapist, and she writes a book about her own life and her own experience, and she's going through a horrible breakup, and I won't ruin the plot of the book for you. But it helped me open my eyes that therapists are just real people too. And sometimes therapists are more messed up than the rest of us. People go into the psychology and therapy fields because they themselves usually need help. It really helps you understand that people are not perfect and that everybody is just human and we all make mistakes. So it helps humanize your spouse and say, hey, even a high profile, powerful therapist is just a human being. The next book is The 7 Principles for Making a Marriage Work by John Gottman and the Gottman Institute. If you don't know what the Gottman Institute is, or you have no idea who John Gottman is, you need to go Google them right now. They are, I dare say, the experts in marriage counseling and relationships. And that book has just pure gold. I mean, the entire book is worth the read itself, even if you're in a healthy relationship. It really tells you step by step what you need to do to communicate with your spouse in a way that's healthy and productive. Even if they're not willing to communicate at all, it's really helpful and beneficial. I won't ruin the plot of the book. You can go look up, all these reviews on the book, but for me it was immensely helpful. And even though my marriage failed, it was helpful because it made me realize a few things. First, I did everything I could. Second, I communicated in a healthy and adult manner. And third, even after following the advice of the experts, my marriage failed, which means there really was no amount of fixing that marriage. It was just done. You got to remember that marriage is a two-way street. And that's kind of, I think, the biggest point of the book is that marriage is a give and take relationship. And if one person is doing nothing but taking and not giving, it's just not going to work. And then the next one is Love and Respect by Dr. Eggerichs. Eggerichs? I can never pronounce your last name. Dr. Emerson Eggerich. Weird spelling. Anyways, it's a weird name, but it's a great book. It really talks about how men and women are different on a mental scale. Men want to be respected. Men feel the most love when they are respected. And women, as cliche as it sounds, they need love and romance. They need to feel passion and heat. And if you're not doing those things in your relationship, then one of you is really not feeling very valued, and it's going to be very painful. If you're even watching this video, you already know your relationship's not doing good. You may be stuck in the same self-destructive pattern that you've been in for years. And if you are, you need to take a hard look at yourself and ask yourself, can you continue to do this for the rest of your life? Because nothing is going to change unless something changes. And the harsh reality of the matter is, your spouse may not want things to change. They may be very comfortable with the way things are. You're going to have to sit down. You are going to have to communicate to them in a way that they understand. When you have a problem, it's not you versus the other person. It's you and the other person together facing that problem. If your marriage isn't going good, you as a team have to fix it. You're not going to fix it yourself, and you can't count on a therapist to magically fix it for you. And the harsh reality, I hate to say it, is that other person may not want things to change at all, ever. They may see nothing wrong with their actions or inactions. And I've had more than one friend tell me that they went to couples counseling and their spouse said, no, there's nothing wrong, I'm happy, I don't know why we're even here. If that happens, run as fast as you can, because it's not going to change, it's just going to get worse. I want you to do yourself a huge favor. Take a deep breath and find people in your life that you can depend on. Find friends, family, clergy, coworkers. I mean, someone out there that you can talk to that isn't going to judge you or belittle you or give you their version of constructive criticism, but just actually listen to you and hear you. And you're going to find that those people aren't always the people you think they are. A really good example of that is I had a friend who sat down and talked with his dad, and his dad took it upon himself to go talk to the wife and say, oh, my son's going to divorce you. And guess what? It kicked off a whole argument. So you got to be really careful who you confide in. The bottom line is this. If they're not willing to change, nothing's going to change. But you also have to be willing to change, or nothing's going to change. And if nothing changes, you're going to be stuck in this same pattern that you're in forever. And that's not a fun thought. Now, in the coming videos, we are going to talk about the whole divorce process. And if this video has helped you in even the slightest bit, it's done its job. If it hasn't helped you at all, you need to take a hard look at yourself and figure out where you're stuck at in this pattern. Are you scared of change? Are you afraid of being alone? Are you afraid of being financially just devastated? I can't count the number of male friends I have that are in an unhealthy marriage that won't get a divorce because they're afraid it'll bankrupt them. And I can't count the number of female friends I have that are in unhealthy relationships because they're afraid of being alone or finding someone worse in the next relationship, or financially they just can't get free of the guy because they have no money. If you're going to go, go. If you're going to stay, stay. If you're not sure what you're going to do, you need to figure it out, because you can't keep doing this forever. From the bottom of my heart, I hope you find what brings you peace and happiness, because I've been right where you are and I know it's not fun, but I can tell you for a fact, once you figure out what you want, man, life gets so much better. Love you guys.